Thank you so much for coming back. This is Syreta Talks, and I'm so grateful and thankful to have Evan Foster, partner of Comedy Club of Columbia and new business.
Working on commercial cleaners as well, but
Yeah.
today I am just a podcast guest and I am excited. I'm excited to
Oh,
be back.
me too, me too. Well, Evan was going to ask me a little bit about how it felt to bare my soul last week because I did, and there's more to come. I mean, and here's my reasoning. And I hope this wasn't one of your questions. Here's my reasoning. Somebody needs to hear that. Somebody needs to make a change. Somebody needs to know that there's something better, and what you're doing now, even if it seems good, it's not going to turn out well. And the second part is a lot of people who watch me know that I'm a believer. Matthew 7:1 says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." Short but sweet. So if you want to go judge somebody, think about the people who you're hurting, because I'm a good person. But let me tell you, my past does not belie who I am now. So if you're holding someone in a position, or you're looking at them different, or you're giving them the side eye, there's no reason for that. There's no reason for that. So no matter what you believe in, you could be missing out on an opportunity to really love, embrace, and care for somebody who deserves it just as much as you do. Now that I'm done preaching.
Well, none of us live perfect lives.
Absolutely.
And so if we are always judged by our past actions, then it makes it that much harder to move past that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you kind of. It was good to hear some of the more of your backstory. More of what led to your time in incarceration and sort of what was going on before that. So
yeah, well, thank you, because people will walk down the street, and if you don't know me, you wouldn't assume those things. So don't make me that person. That's not who I am. But whoever is right now leading that life, I'm talking to you too, girl. It's not gonna turn out well. It's not. Same for, any young man that's out there who is battling with drugs, alcohol, fast life, fast women. It's not going to work out. It's not.
well, kind of related. On my way here this morning, I was thinking about
Mm-hmm.
how has that affected you now? And
Oh.
so I kind of want to ask. I've got a couple things that come to mind whenever
Uh-huh.
I think about that. But um, the first thing is, what sort of fears do you have now that
Ooh.
are a result of your time in incarceration or even before?
Well, I was telling Evan, and this isn't my thing, the circle of excellence. And the thing, oh my gosh, I'm choked up already, is that I would be falsely accused of something, or some type of, just anything that involves going back to that place. Because even when I was there, I was more than that place. I was somebody. And the thought of, even though I'm doing nothing wrong. Uh, I'm like the best client they have because I am still on parole. But I would think about if something were to happen and I was to lose this freedom, I would. I don't even know. Devastation doesn't even. It doesn't even encompass. So that is one thing I'm afraid of. And the other thing is maybe waking up one day without remembering that.
Remembering your time in incarceration?
Yes.
Okay.
And remembering that life. Because if you forget things that, ended, if I was to ever wake up and be like, well, maybe I could use drugs today, or, maybe I need to, find some guy who's a little bit sketchy. And, if I woke up and forgot all those things, or the fact that I opened my front door and breathed in the air of freedom, or realized like I passed by a tree in my yard to park in my garage. When I stopped realizing that that is a tree and I didn't have a tree for 15 years, when I stopped realizing that I never had a nice house with a garage, when I stopped realizing that I can actually get in a car and go somewhere when 15 years passed almost, and the only way I was going in a car was if I hurt myself and was going to the doctor, and I had to break my arm to get in a car 10 years later. I mean, I didn't have to, I didn't want to break my arm, but I actually had a positive influence in my life at that time who I was talking to on the phone, and I was like, well, my arm is broke. I need to get to the orthopedic surgeon. Anybody know a good medical malpractice attorney? Because this was 2021. So I broke my arm and I was like, I need to go out to, and they said, well, at least when you get out, you'll get to ride in a car and you'll get to see outside. And it took about 2 weeks for me to make it to the surgeon. And it was it was a month and a few days later before I was able to get the pin and the plates in my arm. But if I ever wake up and these aren't vivid memories that I can tap into, if I ever want to be ungrateful, if I ever want to be sad, if I ever want to be depressed, then there's a problem. That's what I'm afraid of.
I remember when we first sat down together. It was you conveyed just how appreciative you are of all this because you didn't have it.
I didn't, but I longed for it. It's hard to hold on to hope in a place like that, especially when when I got sentenced, I'd already been incarcerated for like 3 years almost, coming up on 3 years. So then I get to prison and it's like, you got 10 years before you're eligible for parole. A decade. And when I left, I thought someone could have had a baby and that baby be in high school by the time I left the penitentiary. So gratitude. And maybe somebody needs to hear that. Because let me tell you, I know people who are innocent of their charges and have been locked up for over 25 years. We'll talk about that another time.
Wow. So does prison, at least in your experience, is it effective for rehabilitation?
It is a personal decision. However, some people I've seen people on drug charges that only spend a couple of years there and have made up their mind. I will never go back. It is a personal decision because you can look around and find all sorts of reasons to be angry. You can find all sorts of reasons to, oh, woe is me. Woe is me. It's hard to find the reason to get up, smile, suffer through it, and realize that, hey, I got to keep this hope for the future. And let me tell you, there were seasons that probably lasted like 2 years where I was angry and I was mad. And a lot of times it had to do with other inmates because they weren't the type of people that I was used to hanging out with. Even though I had a ratchet past, and there was nothing good about what I was doing, I just wasn't exposed to people who probably had to survive their whole lives, and I started hearing stories of women who were incarcerated who grew up in houses with no electricity. Don't judge them. Grew up and were shuffled in and out of foster care. Had to, experience some of the worst things. And as a result, they weren't the best people. Imagine that. So, hopefully their testimony is still being written and they will become somebody who, is a different person. But, hey, I grew up in the suburbs. I chose to go down this wicked path. I had 2 parents, so there wasn't a reason for me to ever come across people like that, except for that was my destiny. So that way I could speak for them. But yeah, it's hard to hold on to hope. You have to find reasons every day to have hope. I remember one time I found a frog. I started this job early in the morning because, we didn't have anything in there. There were no animals or anything. We had some puppies for parole, but I found this frog and I was so elated. I was like, first of all, I was like, probably 40, 50 feet down the walk, and I was looking at this hump, and in my mind, I thought, man, I hope that's a frog, I just hope it's a frog. And I walked up on it, and it was a frog, and I was just so happy, and the instant thought was, get it off the walk, because somebody will take it and put it in their room, because they want something too, and I thought, he wants to be free, so I picked him up, and of course, he peed on my hand, that's okay, and,
how far into your time there did you find that frog?
Oh my gosh, probably
a while, years, many years.
It was probably close to a decade.
Okay, so closer to the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me tell you, I was still grateful. But when I first got there were frogs. Like you would see frogs all the time, but then I don't know what happened to them. So it had been like 9 years since I saw it. Clearly, you can tell how much I love these frogs. I did. I love those frogs. And I was happy to see that frog that day.
That was a sign. It was
Yeah.
maybe not a sign, but it was just something that was hope.
Yes, it
That was
was.
hope.
And I instantly realized in that moment I had to protect him because he wants to be free just like I do.
Mm.
Yeah, and the girls that would take the animals, because sometimes like there we would have voles, and they're kind of like a mole, but they're kind of like uh, a mice or a mouse or something.
Like a smaller.
Yes, and he would end up living in a trash can, eating out of a cap or something, because we wanted pets too, and I just didn't feel like that was right for that to happen. But that did happen on occasion. If somebody found something and wanted their own little personal pet, then that animal did not get to be free.
Oh well.
No matter if it was a mouse or what. So, but that just shows people's loving hearts.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I think even more because yeah, loving to keep the animal, but
Mm-hmm.
even more to recognize that by doing so you would be keeping it in captivity as well.
Yeah, that was my point of view.
Mm.
And I would tell people that were keeping that vole in that trash can, like, he wants to be free just like you do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't really want to hear it though. They were just
Mm-hmm.
happy to have a pet in prison, you know, which can change people too. We do have a program, Puppies for Parole, and where there are actual dogs that would have got put down if they didn't come to the facility, and we try to train them, you know. So I lived on the dog wing for a minute, and when I got over there, I wasn't a dog trainer because clearly I wanted them to be free too. And, you know, and I understood though, this was their version of freedom until they could get adopted. And I thought in my mind, like, I was talking to my dad, I was like, Dad, these animals smell bad, and I feel like this was a bad decision. And I had on this little robe that, you know, you could buy these robes there, and I had my pajamas on, and my hand was down, and I felt something, and it was a dog licking my hand, like, don't talk about me, you know? So I see the value of that too.
Perspective changed there as well.
Yes, very much so.
Wow. Well, before we wrap it up, you know what? I want to ask. I guess staying on that topic, how have some of your perspectives? What have been some of your biggest perspective changes?
One of the biggest perspective changes is, and it's hit me recently, that I had to leave, but I'm so sad for those I had to leave behind, you know? And I do another podcast with a gentleman named Keenan Hudson. He's out of Philadelphia, and a friend that I was actually incarcerated with, she did 25 years, came on and said that, you know, she was lost when she left because those were her mom's sisters and, you know, cousins and everybody. You know, you make a family in there. And of course I had to go. Of course I wanted to go. But I remember feeling like I couldn't even really be excited or talk about it in front of certain people because they didn't have that opportunity. So of course I reach back. You know, I try and answer the phone calls from my dear friends. Make sure that, you know, they know that they're not forgotten. But that's a strong feeling of, like I said, I carry them with me, and I carry their struggle, because 10 years in front of you feels like a life sentence.
I think that's a powerful perspective for me to hear, because I know, you know, having never been sentenced to time before, it's like from an outsider perspective, have been taught that prison is something that, you know, you go, serve your time. Sometimes it can be violent, sometimes it can be dangerous. But for the most part, it's just a cell. You don't hear about the family, the positive. And so it's powerful to hear that there can be positive in a place that we're taught is typically dark.
And it is typically dark, and you have to make your own positive, but you're in a shared struggle. You're in a shared struggle. So I'm all about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. You know, let's circle it back and make it cyclical. Judge not, lest ye be judged. And we're all in a shared struggle.
Yes, we are. Gotta come together.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, thank you for having me back, my friend.
Oh, Evan, always. Thanks for watching.